Hello, my name is Max. I'm a programmer at the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library, and I'm here today with another Make a Code Monday video. I am very excited to show you a fun little microbit program written in MicroPython. And as a preview, this is what it looks like on the microbit. So I've just reset the game by hitting game over, but the idea with the game is that it's a Simon Says game, where a arrow will flash on the screen, and then it's your job to press the buttons corresponding to those arrows in proper sequence. And so there was a right arrow that was flashed. I'll press the right button. So I've gotten that correct. So now I need to press right, left. Of course, in a Simon Says game, or this type of Simon game anyway, you need to press the correct buttons as they are increasing in that same order with the new button pressed at the end of the sequence. So right, left, I got that right, that's great. Right, left, left, right, left, left. So that's all good. Right, left, left, right. So I'm just gonna get this one wrong. If you press the wrong sequence of buttons, then of course you get game over. Anyway, so that's the game I want to make, and as usual, there's kind of an ulterior motive. This week, the plan is just to kind of work on lists, understanding how the list data object works in Python, and by extension, MicroPython. So we are going to start off our program just by bringing in the modules we need and the libraries we need to kind of run the game and access the hardware. So from the microbit module or library, import everything. And so the asterisk character will import everything and bring it into our program. And we're going to do some random choosing. So also from the random module, we're going to import the choice method, because we're going to choose items from lists, and the choice method is the very, very easiest way to do that. And so also just as a refresher from last week, we are here at python.microbit.org, and the idea is that we're writing in MicroPython, of course, for the microbit. That's the microbit. So let's carry on. List in Python is just something that we can put into a variable. So a variable is created by giving the variable a name. I'm going to make a arrows variable, and I can assign a list to it just by putting the equal sign and then two empty square brackets. And so the square brackets denote a list. Right now this list is empty. I can add into it, if you remember from last week, we worked a lot with the image module using images that were built in that we imported from the microbit main library there. And so I can just type in image dot arrow and then W for west. So that will be a left pointing arrow from the perspective of the microbit. To add another item in the list, I just put a comma, and then we can say image dot arrow east. And so if the images are a bit of a surprise to you, or working with the image module is, definitely check out the last video where we jump into the basics of using the serial prompt, the REPL for the microbit, and we did mess around with images quite a bit. But anyway, the important thing for today is that we made a variable by giving it a name, putting down an equal sign, opening up a left square bracket, put some stuff in there, could be anything. We could put numbers in a list, strings, any old thing. We put what we want in the list, and we add a comma, and then we can put another thing in the list. And we can go on forever. We can put as many things as we want in the list. For my game, I just have two arrows working right now, so we'll just do these two things. I'm going to make a few other variables just as empty lists. And so it's a Simon Says game, so the Simon variable will eventually hold on to the entire sequence of arrows that the game generates. this will later on be compared to my guesses as a player. And so the guess variable will also equal an empty list. So these two empty lists will eventually fill up as the game goes, and we can inspect that in the REPL as we go. But for now, I'm just going to call that done, and we're going to make the kind of main event loop for our game. So loops in Python, while loops in Python are created with the word while, and the while loop will continue as long as any given condition is true. And so the word true is always true, and so while true will run forever, which is good, because we want our game to run, as long as it needs to. We put a colon here to indicate that we want to start this loop, press enter, and then the code editor has automatically indented us 1 tab space or 4 spaces on the keyboard, depending on how you're working. And that's because the Python language is white space significant. By indenting that one level of tabbing, the Python interpreter knows that we are running this code inside the loop. Anything that is further back than this level of indentation, all the way to the left, would not be running in the while loop. So we press tab to know that we are running in the loop. So we are going to do some fun stuff with lists. We have the Simon list, which is empty, and we are going to append to it. We are going to add to the end of that list. So simon.append. The append method is available to all objects of type list. So Simon is a list, we can append to it, no problem. And so the method takes in objects inside of its brackets, and so we open up a left bracket, and we're going to make, this is the fun part with the choice method of the random module, we are going to make a choice, and we're going to choose something inside the arrows list, which is pretty cool. And so we can actually test this out right now. If we, let's add a break in there. So we're only going to add 1 item to the list, and then our loop is going to break. And let's just see what kind of has happened so far. And so if we put this code on the microbit, you'll see that nothing happens on the screen, but if we open up the serial prompt here and take a look at the REPL, our program has already exited because the end file was reached after the while loop broke. But kind of the funny thing is, if we reset this, we can check out what was happening in our program. And so the Simon list has an image in there. Isn't that kind of funny? In their code, our Simon list starts off empty, but after we run simon.append, it chooses one of the arrows. And so the REPL, we can use this as a way to kind of peek in to see what exactly happened. And so Simon, the list has an image in it. Our guess list is still empty. And of course, our arrows list has 2 image objects, because those are the 2 images we put in there. Simon has one that we generated in the code. And what did it happen to choose that time? Well, we can display.show our current Simon object. And so lists are accessed by their index. And so the indexing starts at 0. So Simon 0 is the first item in the list. And that'll show that it happened to pick the left arrow in our random choice there. So we can do that again. We can go simon.append and retype that code, just do it manually. Choice of our arrows. And so we append a choice from our arrows. And now we can display.show Simon number 1, which would be the second entry in the list. So we press enter. We see that's probably a left arrow again. So let's make another choice and show the newest one. There we go. So we got a right arrow in the end. If I were to put a number 3 in there, Python's going to give us an error because I'd only generated 3 items which go from 0, 1, 2. And so trying to access the 3rd item within or the item index is number 3 in the Simon list, gives us a list index out of range error, which is what we expected. So we're appending arrows to the Simon list, but only one at a time. After we append an item to the Simon list, we can show them in turn to our user. So this is now using a for loop. For loops are is a great way to step through lists because it unpacks it automatically, and once your list runs out of items, the for list just moves on. It stops. You don't have to kind of like manage the flow of the list. Once your list is out of items, the for loop just, stops and the rest of your code begins to execute, and that's all good. So for a for loop, we make a little placeholder variable. I'm going to call it item. So for each item in the list we call Simon, what are we going to do? Well, just like we did in our REPL demonstration, we can show, but instead of having to show like a specific item from Simon or something like that, like we did in the REPL, we can just show the current item. And it would be equivalent to like manually typing in Simon 0, Simon 1, Simon 2, however many items there are in Simon. But we can just type an item here, and it'll pick the current item that we are like stepping through in the for loop, and then, do what we want to do with it, which is show it in this case. For our program, we want to have a little bit of rest here to give our player a chance to actually see the arrow. So the sleep module is already available in MicroPython for us, so we just sleep for 500 milliseconds. So that's the length of time the player will see the arrow. We're also going to display .show just like a little square, just to kind of like palette cleanse in case, for example, the program is showing you 3 left arrows in a row. We're going to show in between those objects or items a square, which happens to be small. And this way the player will know that 3 arrows in a row are 3 individual arrows because it'll be broken up by showing you like a square. It's just what I thought up to do that. You can think of any other more interesting way. And we're also going to sleep just for a shorter amount of time. Once we're out of that loop, once we've shown our player all the items that are in the list, which again starts off just like that first one that we add here, we're going to clear the screen. We don't want to give any hints to our player. So we're going to display .clear, or else they would be able to see, whatever was last on the screen, and maybe that'd be confusing if it was just kind of the square, or if it was the last arrow, or something like that. Anyway, this is where things get kind of fun, or more fun, if you are into this kind of thing. So what we can do right now is add a new while loop. Within the while loop, because we want to process some stuff while we are continuing on our program's trajectory. And so we're going to just say while the length, which is a built-in function, so while the len of our guest list is less than the length of the Simon list, we're going to do stuff. So the fun part here, and the reason why I think it's pretty neat, is we need a way to give our player a chance to make their guesses. And so what we're going to do is that if the player presses button A, and so we can get the fact that the button A was pressed by using the button A kind of module there, and we're going to use its pressed method. So while it was pressed, or sorry, if button A was pressed, we can append to the guest list the image of the arrow which faces west. So the idea is here, the player is adding to the list the corresponding arrow that aligns with the button that they pressed. And this is how we're going to keep track of if the player pressed things correctly or not. So while the length of the guest list is less than the length of the Simon list, we know that the player has not finished making their sequence of button presses. And so by appending onto the guest list, we are filling that in so that the program can continue. Very similar to if the button A was pressed, we also want to check to see if the B button was pressed in the same way. So I'm just going to copy and paste that and then change the A to B and the west arrow to east. Don't forget to do that. And so with the code as it is right now, we can check it out and see if it's working. I'm just going to add one little thing here at the furthest left indentation that is still within our while loop. I'm just going to clear the guess list after every time we run through, just so that we're not inadvertently adding to the guest list things that are not in the Simon list or things that I didn't anticipate. And so let's add that to the microbit. And so we got one thing shown to us, and now, right now, as we speak, we're actually inside this while loop in our code. So when I press really anything, because we're not tracking if I'm getting right or wrong answers yet, but if I add to the guest list by pressing the A or B button, it'll show us more arrows. And so if I do, 1, 2, it'll keep on doing this for a good long time. So now we're at the third point. If I press 1, nothing happens. 2, nothing happens. When I press 3, that means that we have broken free of the while loop and started at the beginning here again. And so the good news is things are working in the sense that the code that I made up to track whether or not the player has made at least the right amount of guesses to move on is working. So that's great. So we can keep on moving along. We are going to use this guess.clear, but in a little bit of a different way. So what we want to do now is, just to recap, the Simon list has a bunch of different arrow images in it in a very specific order. The order that they were added to the list is the order they were shown to the player. And so we can use that to our advantage. We can say if the Simon list is equal to, and so if we want to check for equivalence, we use 2 equal signs. Way earlier, we just use 1 equal sign to assign variables. 2 equal signs is to check if things are the same. So if Simon is the same as is equal to the guest list, because again, the guest list also should have been adding arrow images in sequence. If these two are the same, well, that's great news. We can display dot show a very happy image. Sleep for a bit, give our player a chance to soak in the good news, and then we clear the screen. So we clear the guesses. We clear the guesses because if we don't, then those old guesses will be there left over the next time we go to try to make a guess. It'll be very upsetting, and you'll be wondering why your code doesn't work. So make sure you put that, we clear the list in between rounds of guessing. So if those are the same, that's great. Else, we need to, well, show a very, very, very sad image. Maybe sleep for a little bit there as well. We can make it even worse for our player. We can say display dot scroll. So that will scroll text. Game over. And then finally, we can just reset the whole microbit. Maybe sleep for another second there, also just to give our text a chance to show up. And then we just reset. We just reset the whole microbit. And so now, not only are we tracking whether or not the list is the right length, we check to see if the resulting guest list is the same as what was put into Simon. And then it shows a smiley face. And once it clears the guest list, this if block is done being evaluated. It clears the guest list, and then the thing starts over again at the while loop, because the while loop runs forever. Else, we break out of the loop by breaking out of our game, just by resetting. The whole thing just resets at the end of that else block. Let's see if that all works. Let's give it a download and run on our microbit. Cool, so I gotta press the left arrow, yay, left, right. left, right. Good one. Left, right, right, left, right, right. Perfect. Left, right, right, left. So let's say I get this wrong now. Left, right, right, right. Aww. So there's actually an error in my code at line number 28. I forgot to put display.show. And so this is the microbit getting mad at me for not putting display.show. So let's reload that code onto the microbit. So when you get something wrong in the microbit, at least it shows you the, the line number where the error was on the screen, which is great. So let's say that's the right. So now it's right, left. So I'm just going to go right, right, get that wrong on purpose. And our code works. I got game over. And the microbit very happily tells me how wrong I was. And then the game resets forever and always. So this was a kind of quick introduction to just this idea of lists and what we can do with lists. We can iterate over them using for loops. We can put things into them by appending onto them. We can check their length with the len function, and we can also see if two lists are equal with the double equal sign inside an if block. And so we made kind of a fun game. I hope you try to extend this code further and try to make your own game. And whatever you choose to do, I hope you share it with the library, and I sure hope you tune in to the next video. Thanks so much for watching.